Thank you, Lydia. That was amazing. It just shows how much God can, just through praying, how much you can bring God into your life. And next up, we have Lydia talking. Lauren, oh my gosh. Sorry, you can tell it's my first time. I'd just like to pray for you first. Lord, I just pray for Lauren and that you just help the words flow today and that you just fill her with your love and that everything she says just impacts our lives and we can see you in all of everything she says. Amen.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Lauren. Can I just say beforehand, Hannah's first time hosting, Lydia's first Equip spot. These guys are absolutely nailing it. How awesome are they? How awesome are they? They're so good. It can be so scary to stand up here and do that. So, like, you guys are so awesome. And also, just on like a side note, before I get started, God has like just blown my mind in the last sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. There's so much about the songs that they chose for worship, the prayer that Hannah said, the word that Lydia brought us, that it just feeds into what I'm going to speak about tonight, hopefully. And I haven't told anyone what I'm going to speak about tonight, so it's totally from God. And I just feel like he's doing amazing things. So I just really hope that and pray everyone here just comes with their hearts open and that hopefully you can take something away from this tonight. So I'm speaking on the Gospel of John. I'm going to think about a love like no other. So if you know me, you will know that I could talk about my nephew and my niece all the time. I'm pretty sure I drop them in here every time I'm up. But yeah, when people ask me about them, I could talk about them for hours. I'll tell you how clever they are, how adorable they are, how whenever I watch my 2-year-old nephew say his prayers, it's like the cutest thing in the whole world, how smiley my 4-month-old niece is, how proud I am to be their auntie. I've got photos on my phone, I've got videos, I've got everything. Basically, if you want to have a quick chat with me, don't ask me about them, don't even bring them up, you'll be there for hours. But the point of that, not only just to get them in there, but is to highlight that when we talk about the people that we love, be it our friends, our families, our partners, we use language that's positive and is full of love, and we tell stories about how successful they are, and even it's the little things and all their positive attributes and their resilience in the face of struggles. We show photos, we just outpour so much about them. And when we're telling people who don't know them about this person that we love, we increase it tenfold because we want them to love them. We want them to have the same feelings that we have about them. And this, for me, is the Gospel of John. So it's a love letter. It's about Jesus' love for us, but also who Jesus was himself. And John was one of the 3 disciples who had a really close and intimate relationship with Jesus. And he saw so much outpouring of love firsthand that Jesus had for others. But he also loved Jesus so much that he wanted to shout it out to the whole world. And so when we read the Gospel of John and then his further writings, we can see this growth of understanding of Jesus and his teachings and how this increases John's love for him. And tonight I kind of just want to get us to gain a bit of an understanding of what Jesus' love looks like and how it allows us to become fulfilled people and how we can use our fulfillment to love Jesus and to love like Jesus. So tonight I'm going to focus on John 10, verses 7 to 18, where Jesus talks about being our good shepherd. So before I read the verse, I just want to give a bit of context. In the previous chapter, Jesus has just healed a blind man, and he uses this as an opportunity to discuss the spiritual blindness of the Pharisees. So the Pharisees were members of a religious group or party who they clashed with Jesus quite a lot over his interpretation of the law. And because they taught that the way to God was by obeying law, the Pharisees gradually sort of changed Judaism from a religion of sacrifice into one about keeping commandments, so about legalism. And this is kind of the opposite of what we learn from Jesus. So in John 10, Jesus is trying to further explain to us how following him leads to the experience of a love like no other that provides us with a fulfilled life. So I just want to explore it a bit more. So I'm going to break it into 2 parts. And before I start, I just want to sort of link it to something. So I'm doing something a little bit different today, but many of you have probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if you haven't, Maslow is a psychologist, and he proposed that healthy human beings have a certain number of needs to become self-actualized. So that means to fulfill their potential, essentially. So if you think about it as a pyramid, right at the bottom, we've got our basic needs. So things like safety, things like food, water, warmth. And then above that, we've got psychological needs. So like intimate relationships, self-esteem. And then right at the top, the little bit at the top is our self-actualization. So that's when we're fully healthy, we're whole, and we are reaching our potential. And Maslow posited that without meeting those lower needs, so our basic needs and our psychological needs, it's very difficult for us to fulfill the higher ones. So I kind of want to look at how these verses show that Jesus' love for us fulfills all of these needs. And it allows us and encourages us to fulfill the potential he's placed within us. So if we look first at verse 7 to 10, it says, "Therefore Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." So in these verses, Jesus is explaining why he is gathering people to follow him. We are the sheep in this passage, and he's explaining that he is gathering us to provide us with safety. So in verse 9, he says, "I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture." He will come in, they will go out, and they will find safety in him. And he's coming to give us life. So verse 10, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Within the basic and the bottom needs section of Maslow's hierarchy is safety. It also includes food and water and rest. And we know throughout other passages in the Bible that Jesus tells us how we're provided this from him. But that's a whole other sermon. And people have beds to get to and all things, work tomorrow. But yeah, so basically, Jesus is telling us here that following him meets our basic needs. We literally need to do nothing else but follow him. And I don't know about you, but that kind of blows my mind. And not only does he tell us that he provides us with our basic needs, but he goes further by telling us that by following him, we get life. So we get that whole bottom bit completely met just by following Jesus. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to give him anything. We don't have to pay him anything. We just have to follow him. And then we get life. And we don't just get life with Jesus, because that's not a big enough gift, apparently. We get a full life, or in some verses, it's described as an abundant life. So the dictionary defines abundant as more than enough or existing in large quantities. So Jesus doesn't just give us safety and all our basic needs. He doesn't just give us life, but he gives us more than enough life. He gives us more than enough. And he gives us a life that is full to the brim. So if we think back to Maslow's hierarchy, Jesus is once again giving us those things that we need to be the best, healthiest, fulfilled humans that we can be. And I say it again, but we literally don't need to do anything else but follow him. He's given us all those examples of how to follow him and what way we should be in following him. And I'll kind of touch on that a bit later. But that's it. We just have to do it. And I guess then when we compare this with what Jesus tells us, we'll have taken if we choose to follow others or we choose to follow ourselves. So if we choose to follow the legalism of the Pharisees or we choose to follow our pride and our selfish desires, he says in verse 10, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. How different is that from life and safety and basic needs and abundant and fullness? To steal and kill and destroy. None of these things offer us safety. None of them offer us life. They don't fulfill our basic needs. They don't fulfill our psychological needs. And they certainly don't leave us feeling fulfilled. Stealing, killing, and destroying all suggest a loss of something, a life of emptiness, a lack of fulfillment. And Jesus is the opposite of this. How amazing is that? Jesus is the complete opposite of that. And he only gives, and he gives abundantly. And all we have to do is follow him. So then if we look on at verses 11 to 18, he says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and he runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice. And there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I receive from my Father. So in these verses, Jesus is telling us how he's going to give us safety, how he's going to give us abundant life. And he talks about laying down his life in those verses alone 5 times. So he's telling the crowd that he's speaking to at the time what's coming. They obviously aren't aware of that at the point. But he's telling them what's coming, and he's telling them how he's going to save them. He's telling them how he's going to look after his flock. He's going to die for them. He's going to die for us. He's going to die for me. And I don't know about you, but that's a pretty huge price to pay for the people that you love. And I mean, when I thought about it, I was like, thinking about all the people that I love, and I was like, die for them? I was like, oh, it's a big ask, team. But Jesus doesn't just say, like, oh, I'm going to do it, maybe. He does it by choice. It says in the passage, no one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. There's no sort of like diving in front of a bullet, saving you last minute, didn't really know what was going to happen. He's actually made a choice to lay down his life for you and for I. And that right there is the definition of love like no other. And Jesus actually tells us this himself later on in John. So in John 15, verse 13, which actually David Buckingham came up and did an equip spot on, which was amazing because that linked in. But greater love has no one this, to lay down his life for one's friends. He tells us himself, greater love has no one than this, to lay down his life for one's friends. And not only is Jesus going to lay down his life for us, but in this verse, he shows us the other ways he loves us. He's going to lead us, because shepherds lead their flock, and he does it because he loves us. He doesn't lead us because he's this big authority figure who just wants to shout at you and be strict with you, but he does it because he loves us. He leads us into safety and into life because he loves us. And he's going to remain when the wolf attacks. Or for me, when I thought about it, I was like, this really is when times are difficult. He's going to be there. He's going to remain. He's not that hard hand who runs away and abandons you and leaves you to scatter. He's going to be right there protecting you. And this is just like our friends do. I've got some really awesome friends, and I know that they are going to lead me and hold me accountable in times when I'm a bit lost. And also I know that they're going to be there when times are difficult. And I know that they're going to be there to celebrate me when times are joyful. We're not just a number to Jesus. We're his friends. And like that, just when I realized that just totally changed my attitude to how I approach Jesus. And I really hope that sticks with you tonight. That if we take it back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so I said that bottom bit is your basic needs, your safety and your food. That next bit is our psychological needs. And in that is intimate relationships and love. And Jesus not only offers up that relationship and fulfills that need for us, but he craves it. He wants that intimate relationship with you. He wants it with me. He wants it with every single member of his flock. And he wants to shower that incredible love like no other upon all of us. And once again, we can just see that when we follow Jesus and we enter into that intimate relationship and friendship with him, that he's allowing us and creating us to be the best, healthy, fulfilled humans that we can be, so that we can reach our God-given potential. And it's no coincidence that in the metaphor, he describes himself as a shepherd. So the Old Testament uses the word shepherd as a metaphor for God. And in this passage, Jesus tells us more about the shared connection between him and God. He says, just as the Father knows me, I know the Father. What Jesus cares about, God cares about. What God cares about, Jesus cares about. And God is just as involved in Jesus' sacrifice and laying down of his life for us, because it says in the passage, he commands it. And this love, like no other, it doesn't just explain Jesus' love, but it reflects God's love for us as well. So we can see that while Jesus is telling us this, and we can say that Jesus loves us like God does as well, there's just so much more magnitude of love and relationship in there to build on our psychological needs. And in fact, we can see that in this verse, Jesus mirrors what God said in Ezekiel 34, 25 to 30. God says, I will make a covenant of peace with them and eliminate harmful beasts from the land so that they may live securely in the wilderness and sleep in the woods. I will make them and the places around my hill a blessing, and I will cause showers to come down in their season. They will be showers of blessing. Also, the tree of the field will yield its fruit, and the earth will yield its increase, and they will be secure on their land. Then they will know that I am the Lord, when I have broken the bars of their yoke and have delivered them from the land of those who enslaved them. They will no longer be a prey to the nations, and the beasts of the earth will not devour them. But they will live securely, and no one will make them afraid. I will establish for them a renowned planting place, and they will not again be victims of famine in the land, and they will not endure the insults of the nations anymore. Then they will know that I, the Lord their God, am with them, and that they, the house of Israel, are my people. So in the Old Testament, God promises us safety in life. And in John 10, Jesus promises us safety in life. It just shows us that God and Jesus' will and love for our lives is completely in alignment. And in fact, we know God loves us because Jesus tells us later in John 16:24, no, the Father loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I came from God. It's that simple. You don't have to prove yourself or earn anything or pay anything. Once again, like all we have to do is follow Jesus. And when we follow Jesus, he makes us whole. He gives us our worth or our esteem, which I was kind of talking falls in that psychological needs, just like we see in the hierarchy. And he makes us better, healthier, whole humans who can fulfill their God-given potential based on Jesus' love alone. We need nothing else in this world but Jesus to fulfill every single one of our needs. And that, to me, is a love like no other. So, what do we do with this new knowledge, this whole, better, healthier gift of abundant life? Well, for me, when I thought about it and I prayed about it, and from what I've learned over the years of knowing Jesus, it made sense to me that if Jesus gives us a life, and he gives us not just a life, but he gives us more than enough of life. He gives us a full life filled to the brim with everything from him, with all of his love and his blessings. Why wouldn't we use that life for him? So one devotional I read about it put it really, really, really nicely. So I'm going to steal their words. But yeah, they talked about how an abundant life is a bit of a paradox. Living our life abundantly and following Christ means that we live our life for others. They suggested that when someone lives their life abundantly, they hear Christ's voice. They walk in Christ's footsteps and they perform acts of love as Christ performed acts of love. And that to me makes perfect sense in how we follow him. It's right there. We hear his voice, we follow in his footsteps, and we love other people the same way that he loves us and loved other people. When we live selfishly, we feel so much worse. I don't know about you guys, but if I'm a bit selfish or I sort of say something that's not, I'm a bit snappy with my mum, I feel horrible. I feel terrible. I don't feel good. I don't feel whole. I don't feel healthy. I don't feel fulfilled. When I show love to other people, when I serve other people, when I have opportunities to share Jesus, I feel whole and healthy and fulfilled. And when we're more open to others and living a life for others, we feel so much better. And in fact, in John 21:15-17, Jesus and Peter have a conversation where Jesus tells Peter that what it is he can do to show his love for Jesus. So it says, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" And Simon said, "Yes, Lord." He said, "You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." And again, Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." And the third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" And Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." He tells Peter to feed his lambs. He tells Peter to take care of his sheep. He tells Peter to feed his sheep. Jesus makes it so clear to us. We just need to use his example of being a good shepherd and use our gift of abundant life to love him, follow him. And we can do this by loving others in a way that helps them to have their needs met, to fulfill their God-given potential. Like, we can do this in little everyday things in life. So I was trying to think of a good example of this earlier, and it's quite an entertaining one for me, maybe, but I was back home last weekend and back to my nephew. Got to get him in, you see. So he is coming 3 soon, and he's just gone through potty training, which is real pleasant, very fun. And so there was many accidents on the whole weekend that required lots of changes of pants and all the things. And because I don't live there, when you're home, you get, "Oh, Auntie Lauren will deal with that." Like, here you go. My brother and sister-in-law are like, "Thank goodness there's another adult." But yeah, so this wasn't the most pleasant of jobs at the time, but there wasn't a time that I said no to meeting his needs of being clean, because I love him. There wasn't a time that I said no to meeting his basic need. And within that, I met more of his needs, because our relationship continued to grow over the weekend, because he felt safe, he felt loved. And also, it was the most beautiful thing, because when he got it right and he did his accidents in the potty, there was so much joy shared in something so little as doing your wee-wees in the loo. But having abundant life and following Jesus by loving others is just like this. It actually allows us to meet other people's basic needs. It allows us to meet their psychological needs. It allows us to build relationships, provide for others, and share in the joy that comes when we're meeting and supporting people to fulfill their God-given potential. So if you leave tonight with nothing else, I hope that you know that you are so loved. You are loved by a love that is like no other. And that the only thing we need to have every single one of our needs fulfilled is Jesus. And all of the other stuff is just stuff. Jesus meets our every need, and that is a love like no other. So if you know Jesus, I pray tonight that you feel encouraged, and I pray that hopefully I've shared something that can give you a bit more of a knowledge of his love for you. And I urge you to look at the areas of your life where you already encourage. There are so many incredible people in this congregation that I know that encourage and love Jesus' sheep and their brothers and their sisters and support them to meet their God-given potential. So I pray that you can look at those areas and that you can celebrate that. I pray for so much joy and love and celebration in those areas. And I urge you to think of areas where we can do this more. where we can love more, where we can encourage more, and where we can meet the needs of others more. Because when we do this, not only are we loving Jesus as he asked, but our abundant life, which is so full to the brim already, just grows in abundance, and we gain even more. And that is so exciting. And if you don't know Jesus, I really urge you tonight to make the decision to follow him. I know from personal experience that it can look daunting, or you might